we're starting the new episodes, the last leg, the last 4 movies. We're doing the Daniel Craig Bonds. Here we go. And this is going to be very interesting. So we're starting with Casino Royale 2006. All right. This one is, I mean, I've looked up many reviews, everything, just getting information on this movie and talking to people and everything, and a lot of them have a lot to say that they don't like this movie. They don't like Daniel Craig as Bond, blah, 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 blah. So I decided to look up the top reasons why people didn't like this movie, and the top reasons why people don't like Daniel Craig as Bond. I just had to look it up. Because watching this movie, yeah, if you like the jokey, funny, basically a comedy Bond, you're not going to get that with this movie. This movie is very serious, very brutal, very gritty. It's just, this is a different kind of Bond. But the top reasons were basically, number one was Daniel Craig is too ugly to play Bond. Okay, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I'm going to let that one kind of slide. I believe Daniel Craig is a very attractive man, but that's on y'all. One of the gripes was Daniel Craig is blonde, not a brunette. Who cares what color Bond's hair is? Like, appearance to me doesn't matter as much. Like, having the air of the appearance of believability. Like, I believe Daniel Craig could kick someone's butt in real life. He has that kind of look, but like aesthetics shouldn't matter much. That would, because then it wouldn't matter. Like, people are already up in arms like, well, we don't need a black Bond or anything like that. And it's like, if it's Idris Elba, go for it. If it's Michael B. Jordan, cool. I'm cool with that, because they have the slyness, the slickness, the charisma and everything to pull off Bond. But because he has blonde hair, come on. They didn't want a reboot. That was another one. It's like, well, honestly, the Bond movies were getting stale. There hasn't been a stellar Bond film since Connery or Lazenby. Like, Roger Moore didn't have a single, like, top-notch movie. Timothy Dalton definitely didn't have a top-notch movie. Pierce Brosnan had Goldeneye, but his other 3 were meh. This whole series had gotten stale. And they needed a reboot. They needed to restart the series and like breathe some life into it, and they did. In my opinion, they killed it with this movie. This is an amazing film. I just don't understand the griping about it, you know? Oh, there's no gadgets. Who cares? This is Bond restarting. This is a basically a Bond origin story. In the beginning of the movie, he's not even 007 status. So, but I'm going to get into it because there is a lot to this, so, and I don't want to go too far over. The amount of people that were in line to play Bond is ridiculous, and the amount of people who were in line to play Vesper is even more, and I'm going to get to that. But this is directed by Martin Campbell. It's his second time out. He directed the aforementioned Goldeneye, which was a fantastic film, and he knocks it out of the park with this one too. This is Daniel Craig. He was 38 when he started this. This is the first time Bond has been under the age of 40 since George Lazenby. That's telling right there. Like, Bond is old in these movies. He's 38 here. So, you know, we have the Bond girls of Vesper Lind and Solange. Le Chiffre is kind of our villain. I'll explain later. Mr. White is our villain, even though he's only in it for a grand total of like 10 minutes. We get to see the Aston Martin DB5 from '64 and the Aston Martin DB5 from '06. And we have a song by Chris Cornell, rest in peace, You Know My Name, which is the theme song. And the reason why it's called You Know My Name and not Casino Royale, because Chris Cornell wrote the song. And he said in no way could Casino Royale be in a song, the name Casino Royale be in a song and sound serious and sound like a rock song, because they wanted a rock song. There's no way you could do that. And he was like, none of the titles would really work, except for, he said he would write Octopussy as a joke. So instead he did You Know My Name, which is in line with the movie, because the movie is reintroducing you to Bond. And he is like, but you know who he is, so you know my name. It's very cool. Little tidbits here. The person who was wanting to direct this is crazy, was Quentin Tarantino. Quentin Tarantino wanted to direct this film, but he wanted to do it based in the 60s and in black and white. He also wanted Uma Thurman to play Vesper and Samuel L. Jackson to play M. So it would have been a very Tarantino movie. I don't know how they could have done a PG-13 Bond with Tarantino, but that's what he wanted. And what happened was they decided they weren't going to do Pierce Brosnan again, and that's another complaint I heard a lot. It's like, I wanted another Pierce Brosnan movie. Pierce Brosnan was 54 years old. No, he was too old. He even thought, I'm like, man, I'm too old for this. I can't do this again. But when they recast, when they said that Pierce Brosnan was not coming back, Tarantino said, well, I don't have nothing to do with this project anymore. He honestly didn't have anything to do with it to begin with. He was just talking, saying what he wanted to do. And I'm wondering if that's what's going on right now with his little Star Trek thing, where he's like, I'm going to direct a Star Trek movie. Are you? We'll see. To be fair, I love Tarantino. I love every single one of his films, and that includes Death Proof and Hateful Eight. I loved Hateful Eight. Not everyone liked Hateful Eight. I loved Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but see there, I love him. But for a Bond movie, no. The reason why this movie is so dark and kind of gritty is because the year previous, 2005, Batman Begins came out, and that was a really gritty movie, and it killed in theaters. So they're like, well, looks like people want grittiness. Let's make Bond gritty. But what can we do with spy action? That's a superhero movie. So they actually looked into the Bourne films, the Bourne Identity, the Bourne Supremacy, the Bourne Ultimatum, stuff like that, to draw inspiration. And like, oh, so people want fight scenes and action. They don't want just build up and dialogue like all the other ones. So this movie is a very actiony movie. Has a lot of action scenes in it, a lot of suspense, and it's very well made. The suspense sequences in this, some of the most suspenseful scenes are the scenes where they're playing Texas Hold'em poker, and I can't watch Texas Hold'em poker on ESPN. I'm like, this is boring. Why is this on ESPN? But in this movie, they make it tense and just, they really draw you into the game, and I believe it's the score that does that, but still. So they started this movie, and they're like, all right, we're going to have to basically start over, and we start black and white. Even the opening production scenes are black and white. The MGM Tiger lion is in black and white. Everything is black and white. We see Bond, not a 00 yet, because he's talking to a guy. He's like, oh yeah, you don't even have 00 status. Have you even killed anyone? And yes, one. And it shows him killing a guy in the bathroom, drowning him even. He drowns him in the sink, and you can see he's struggling with it. And the guy's like, yeah, well, the second one, and Bond pops him. He's like, yes, it does. The second one's easier. So that is our entire open. Like, it's Bond showing Bond. It's the shortest open in the Bond series. Pops the guy, but before I show you, you know who it is, but before I show you, I'm going to go through this long list of people who were supposed to play Bond. This is insanity. These were considered. Some of them auditioned, some of them turned it down. But the ones, I'll mention it when they auditioned and turned it down. But these were considered. Karl Urban, he was considered to be Bond. I think he could have pulled it off. Not a fantastic actor, but a good one. I'm a big fan of Karl Urban. I dressed up like Karl Urban for Halloween. The next one, Colin Farrell. I'm not sure he could pull off the believability, but Colin Farrell was in the running. He was considered to play Bond. This one auditioned for Bond. He didn't get it, but Sam Worthington, you know him from, well, unfortunately, I'm going to have to say Terminator Resistance. He's in a lot of other films, but he has the grittiness and the look and all, but I'm not sure he has the charm. The next one is all charm. I don't know if he could do gritty or not. Ewan McGregor. he might be able to do gritty. He was in Train Spotting and stuff like that, but I don't know if he could pull off the badass part of it. He would be like a Roger Moore Bond to me. Very charismatic. The next one, I can see it. Gerard Butler. I can see him doing that. Like, Gerard Butler would be a pretty good Bond. He's big, beefy. He's got the acting chops. He's got the emotion. I think he would make a great Bond. Now he's probably too old, but the next one was crazy. And I don't know about this one. Hugh Jackman. He can do gritty. He's a fantastic actor. He actually turned it down. Him and Gerard Butler both turned this down. They turned it down because they didn't want to get typecast. And now, just like Liam Neeson, Gerard Butler is typecast in the action role. So, minus, a couple of here or there. Now, this one's the big one. So, Daniel Craig plays Bond. But there was one guy that was really close to playing Bond. I mean, he was right on the finish line. And that is Henry Cavill. The issue here with Henry Cavill is he was too young. He was 22 years old whenever this was being made. So it didn't work out. But now, Henry Cavill is actually in the lead to play the next Bond. It's him and Tom Hardy neck and neck. So Henry Cavill almost played Bond here. But as it stands, the man who won the job, Daniel Craig. And when he won the job, it put everyone up in arms. No, they called him James Blonde, and there were petitions to get him to not play James Bond. And to me, I think that those people should eat their words, because I think he does a fantastic job as James Bond, especially this one, because this one, he is not James Bond yet. He is just James Bond, the spy, trying to become James Bond. So this is really cool. For all that though, but the opening title sequence is a bunch of poker suits and everything. We see a little bit of fighting going on with an amazing song by Chris Cornell. It is very Bondy. It's very, you can hear it. Just, you feel Bond when you hear this song. It's one of my favorites. Lots of casino action going on, roulette and all that. But that's your open. We open the movie in Uganda when it's raining. And here's a fun fact: when you see that rain in Uganda, this is the first time. Go back and watch all 22 of these movies, the first 21 Eon productions. The first time ever that it is raining in a Bond film. The first time. So it's raining, and there's something going on. We meet our bad guy, Mr. White. Mr. White, this is the first time you see him, and it's the last time you see him for a really long time, because another bad guy takes over, and that's Lashif, played by the awesome Mads Mikkelsen. Jesper Christensen plays Mr. White, but because he's not really in the movie much, I don't really pay stock in that. But Mads Mikkelsen, you know him from Hannibal, the show. He was in the game Death Stranding. This dude is a phenomenal actor. Not one of my favorite villains of Bond, though, because he is less of a villain and more of a henchman. Throughout the film, I'll go ahead and spoil it, but throughout the film, he's kind of meek. He doesn't really do much. The whole reason why he's doing what he's doing is because they're going to kill him because he lost money. And he's kind of a wuss through the whole thing. Yeah, he tortures Bond and stuff, but the whole thing, it's not he wants power and he wants to rule the world. He just doesn't want to die. This guy is a guy who's basically being blackmailed. So, not one of my favorite villains. He's not going to make the top 5, unfortunately. So, Mr. White and they make a deal, basically, to they're going to give them money, lots of money, like $100 million or something like that, for some weapons. And we go straight into Bond stalking someone. Him and a partner are stalking somebody. And there's a funny moment where the guy's like, "What'd you say? What?" And he's like, "Quit touching your ear." He's like, "What are you talking about? Quit touching your ear." And the guy they're stalking sees him touching his ear and starts to bolt. And we get a really long parkour foot chase. And it is actually pretty freaking great. And it's just a foot chase. So he's chasing this guy through all these construction sites. There's a great moment where the guy can't find him, and Bond comes plowing through the place in a dumpster, and the guy shoots at the window, 2 shots to the window, and Bond doesn't even flinch. Daniel Craig just clink, 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 and just keeps driving. It's so cool. There's a point when they're running after each other, and this is all speed versus power. He's running up the cranes, running up the framing of basically the skeletons of the building, and he's going through small places while Bond is just plowing through walls. There's a point where they're up at the top, and the guy's pointing his gun, runs out of bullets, throws it at Bond. Bond, not even like, he's the smoothest motion. He doesn't even flinch, just grabs the gun, throws it back at him, and hits him. It's just like, wham, pow. And you're like, dang. He's so great in this role. But he ends up catching the guy and popping him. He's being chased by like the army and stuff, and he pops him in front of everybody. Blows up things, blows up basically the whole building, pops the guy, runs away, and he's got this bomb. He's been chasing a bomb maker the whole time. And he kills a guy, and M is not very happy. He meets up with M, who, this is your one continuity error of the movie, is that Judi Dench, Dame Judi Dench, plays M in this. And if this was the beginning of Bond, Judi Dench didn't become M until much later in his career. So here's your one continuity error. And it's one that I can forgive because it's Dame Judi Dench, and she was the best M. She's so good at M, and she's not M the whole time. So, but she's very angry. He has broken into her house, and he's like, how did you find out where I live? He's like, the same way I found out what M stands for. And he's like, I can't believe that M stands for. And she stops. She's like, one more syllable, and I will have you killed. And it's just so cool, cold-blooded. But they get out of there, and he's basically learning to be Bond. You find out he is learning to be smooth. He has to learn all these things. And so she's like, well, you're going to have to go on vacation. The thing is, Bond already knows where the next step is, but he doesn't tell him. He's just going to go do it himself. So he goes off to the Bahamas, which is, of course, Bahamas is where Sean Connery died, which is sad. And he has a great moment where he stops to tie his shoes so he can watch somebody, and a guy pulls up. He's like, hey, yo, park my car. And throws his keys. Bond's like, all right. He takes it and wrecks the car and just kind of throws the keys or whatever, showing that Bond he just doesn't care. He has to play poker. He's going to play poker with somebody, and in a really tense moment, he meets with this guy named Demetrius, and he has a car that Bond really wants. He sees it, he's like, ooh, what's that? And he's like, the Aston Martin 1964. And they play poker, and the guy ends up betting the car, and Bond wins it. So now Bond has his Aston Martin 64. But another thing that this Demetrius has is a wife named Solange, who Bond gets with. Bond takes her to the hotel, but they don't actually show him do anything. In fact, Bond is kind of like just kind of using her for information. And he finds out that her husband, Demetrius is the guy we're chasing. We find that out. And he's going to chase him all the way to the airport. And right away, Demetrius tries to kill him. And Bond, in a very smooth way, kills him with a knife in the middle of an airport. You don't even know. He just, pop. He's going to walk away. It's cool. And there is a guy that he's having to chase through this. And we run into Richard Branson. He's out that's Richard Branson, the owner of Virgin Mobile, and he's like, is that Richard Branson? I look it up, and it's Richard Branson. That's him. Okay, so we see a random Richard Branson sighting, and there's a big airplane chase or airport chase. We're chasing him all through the airport, back and forth. He's finding out passwords. You'll see it when you see the movie, Ellipsis. And he's chasing the guy. He sees a little bomb dangling from a truck, and he finds out what they're going to do. They're going to blow up this giant jet that they're revealing just to cause some damage. They're being paid to do so. And he's fighting the guy. He stops him, boots him, but he finds out the guy's rigged the truck, and Bond's trying to stop the truck. He stops it right in front of the jet. Everything's cool. The cops are arresting Bond, and the guy's like, yeah, but I still got the bomb. And he hits it, but he hears the beeping. Bond has attached the bomb to the guy. Boom. Blows the guy up. dead, and that's one of the cooler moments because you don't really see it coming. And he's going back to Solange, but Solange is dead. She's been tortured for information because they find out that they lost a lot of money in that car thing when they were going to blow up the jet. So now they have to find another way to make money, and it's a gigantic poker tournament. This is how we're going to fund this war, with a poker tournament, because Le Chiffre is a mathematical genius, and he can play poker and know what's coming up. He knows who's going to win. But Bond's really good at poker too. So M sends Bond. This is pretty much his very first mission as a 007 agent. He's sent to play poker against Le Chiffre. There it is. On the train to the casino, we meet Vesper, who is our Bond girl. And this is a long list. There's a wait for this one. Considered to play Vesper was Keira Knightley. Yeah, Keira Knightley from Pirates of the Caribbean, stuff like that. Keira Knightley was up for the role. This one's a little weird. Angelina Jolie. Angelina Jolie was up for it. Okay, cool. Angelina Jolie, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Tomb Raider, which, fun fact, Daniel Craig and Angelina Jolie were in Tomb Raider together. Naomi Watts. Naomi Watts, she's more of an independent actress. I mean, she does do budget films and stuff like that, but you mainly see her in independent films. Scarlett Johansson, who would go on to play one of the best spies in the world in Black Widow. So she became a huge deal. One of my favorite actresses. I think she's a little too badass to play Vesper, but Charlize Theron. The thing is, she's got the acting chops to play Vesper. I just think she's a little too badass, because Charlize Theron, she's super badass. One that I think could have pulled it off, Jennifer Conley. Jennifer Conley, definitely great actress, wonderful actress. She could have definitely pulled this off. This one I'm kind of meh on, I guess higher for her looks. Rachel McAdams from The Notebook. Okay, Rachel McAdams. I mean, if you're having like, a good love story, sure, put Rachel McAdams in there. I mean, put Ryan Gosling in as Bond, and you got yourself a movie, I guess. This one definitely could pull it off, but I don't know how old she was at the time of 2006. She probably would have been the same age as Daniel Craig, which would have been okay. And she's a gorgeous woman, great actress. Michelle Pfeiffer. Michelle Pfeiffer was considered. I think Keira Knightley actually auditioned. A lot of these girls just flat out turned it down. And then you have Olivia Wilde. Olivia Wilde was another one, gorgeous girl. No, I don't really see as Vesper. As it stands, we got one of my favorite people in the world and one of the most gorgeous women in the world to play Vesper, and that is Eva Green. I am absolutely in love with Eva Green. Such a good actress. Penny Dreadful. I mean, just countless roles. I love her, and she's amazing as Vesper. She plays an emotionally distraught. She plays emotional distress really well. She just plays an emotionally shattered woman very well, and an intellectual equal to Bond. She nails it. Nails it. I love it. Love her. Super cool. But what Vesper is, she is a foreign liaison for the Treasury, because they are supplying Bond with the money to play in this poker game, and this is like $30 million, 20 million some. It's an insane amount of money. So there's a great scene in the train where they're introducing each other, and they do this part where they're reading each other, and he's like, "Oh, well, the way you skirted past my question about your parents, and you're definitely an orphan." But it's stuff like that. She's like, "Oh, I want to say that you went to a private school, blah blah," and they do the same thing to each other, and it's a great moment, and like they nail each other down, and it's a great thing. And Bond is basically like trying to hit on her, but she's like, "Nah, son, back off." And it's like, okay, cool, and you can tell Bond is kind of falling for her a little bit. So, yeah, it's very cool. She's very like they're it's just, I'm trying to think of a good word to describe her. She's just so awesome in the scene where they're going back and forth. It's just great. But he gets a new car, and it's your new Aston Martin, and they find out they're staying in the same hotel together, but they're staying under a married name. And immediately Bond goes in there. He goes, "Yeah, Bond, James Bond, but you'll find the thing under this name." And she's just like, "What are you doing?" And he goes out to see his new toy, the Aston Martin, the beautiful, beautiful new Aston Martin. And he gets his first tux. And it's Eva Green that gives it to him. He hands Eva a dress. He's like, "You're going to wear this because you're going to come into the room, you're going to kiss me on the neck, and everyone's going to be looking at you and not their cards." Okay. And then he goes over to the bed and sees this new toy. "I can't wear this. This is not my style." And she's like, "Well, I got to have you looking like you belong at that table." And he's like, and then he comes back, he's like, "It's tailored. How did you know?" And she's like, "I measured you the first time we met." So it was very cool. They have little moments like this that are great together. Eva Green and Daniel Craig have so much chemistry. It's wonderful. But when we get to the table, Bond's in his tux, he looks amazing, and Eva comes in looking like this. And all heads are turning. All the guys at the table are looking at her for very good reason. It's so cool. She looks awesome, and he has to make another distraction. So he orders a dry martini, except he gives detailed instructions on what to do. It's like 2 parts this, 1 part this, and the quote he says in the movie, I did not write it down because I didn't want to. The quote he says in the movie is straight from the book. It's straight out of Casino Royale, the book, which is something because one of the things he mentions actually went out of business in 1986. So you can't even make this thing anymore. It's great. Lashif is actually about to be killed by assassins. He survives it, but Bond he doesn't save him, but the guys are leaving the room, and he actually has fights with them, kills both of them, and Vesper actually kind of helps, but it's the first time she has ever seen someone die. Now, this is crazy. So he's in there doing his thing, playing poker. He goes back, he's like, "Oh great," he cleans up all the blood, goes straight down to the table, plays poker. And here's the thing, in this poker scene, they kind of mention it early in the movie, they play poker for 4 hours, they break for an hour. They play poker for 4 hours, they break for an hour. This is what they do. So Bond plays poker, and he goes back up to the room and finds Vesper in the shower, fully clothed. She's having a mental breakdown, and she's shivering, and Bond just gets in the shower with her. He's fully dressed, and he covers her up, and she says, "It feels like this blood is not washing from my hands." So he kind of like licks her hands. There's no blood on her hands. He licks her hands. He's like, "Is that better?" And it's such an emotional scene. And cool thing, Daniel Craig and Eva Green nailed that in one take. They didn't even take a second take. They were like, nailed it, perfect. And it's a beautiful moment. But what they don't really cover is the fact that she has been sitting in that shower for 4 hours. She's shivering, she's cold. And they don't really talk about that, but that is something that happened. They mention it in the shooting script, I think, but not in the movie. Bond ends up losing all his money because he knows Lashif's tail. He touches his forehead, but Lashif uses that. He's like, "Oh, you know my tail? Well, I'm bluffing." And Bond loses all his money because it turns out he wasn't bluffing. And Bond goes a little crazy, and he's like, he's going to kill somebody. And we meet this guy who turns out, he's in a lot of the movie, but he turns out to be Felix. You guys all know Felix? Yes. We all know Felix. And Felix is going to front Bond the rest of the money because he works for the CIA and he really doesn't need the money. So he buys him back in, and it works. He actually ends up getting Lashif actually tries to poison Bond, and Bond he almost dies. He gets saved, but he comes back to the table fresh as a daisy, and Lashif's like, "What the heck's going on?" He's like, "Oh, sorry guys, that last hand nearly killed me." Yes. And Bond ends up winning the whole thing, taking all Lashif's money, and he tips the dealer $500,000, and the dealer like takes the chip like, "Oh yeah, thanks, cool, 500,000, whatever." It's a cool moment. I like it. But Vesper actually gets taken at that moment. They take Vesper, and he drives his car, and they end up putting Vesper in the road. Bond dodges her. The car flips. The car flips 7 times, which is the Guinness Book of World Records for most flips in a movie. 7 times, boom, 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 and it's a nasty, nasty wreck. They end up taking Bond too, and they're going to torture both of them. You don't see them torture Miss Vesper, but you see Lashif torture Bond. He cuts out the bottom of the seat, strips him naked, puts him in there, balls and ass hanging down at the bottom, and he takes this little rope thing and just starts hitting Bond in the balls. This is an actual scene. He's torturing him like this, and it's really hurting Bond, but Bond, being Bond, says, I got an itch. Can you just, and he's like, bam, and he's, no, you can tell it hurts. No, it's a little bit further to the right, and bam, he's like, just starts laughing, and this maniacal laugh that's just frightening. And he stops and says, it's funny because everyone's gonna know you died scratching my balls. And you're like, whoa, like this is so horrifying. Mr. White shows up, and immediately Lashif turns, this is the reason why he's not gonna make my top bomb. He's immediately like, look, I'll get your money, I'm sorry. Mr. White, pop, Lashif's gone, he's dead. Bond did not kill Lashif. And then everything's hunky-dory. Bond kind of wakes up in a place, a rehab center, and Vesper's there, and he comes up like, oh, can you put in your account number and your password to get this money transferred back to the CIA? They do it. Dude walks away, and Vesper finds out that his password was Vesper, and he names his drink Vesper and everything. He's clearly in love, and then we get a huge montage of Bond and Vesper traveling the world, falling in love, and even a point where Bond resigns. He's like, no, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I resign. And he resigns from the MI6. And it's just horrible. But we found out that the dude that got the password and everything was not working for the CIA, and that Vesper has betrayed Bond. So we go, and we have a shootout in a derelict building that starts collapsing underneath, just shooting at the money's goes into the water, and it's a huge shootout. Everything, it's horrible. They have locked Vesper in an elevator to a sinking ship, and he ends up killing everybody, and he's going to save Vesper. Instead of going after the money, he's going to save Vesper, even though she betrayed him. They're under the water. Vesper does not let Bond save him, locks herself in. Vesper dies. Horrible moment. Bond is shattered. He pretends like he's not. He is. Turns out that Vesper was blackmailed. She had a boyfriend, and they said they were going to kill him if she didn't give them the money. So, and at the end of it, we also find out that she was never tortured. She was making a deal with the guy, saying, if you let him live, you can have all the money. Don't even worry about my boyfriend. So basically, she was saving his life. But she's dead. And he's like, M's like, well, you need to come back to work. He's like, okay. She's like, if you need a little time. He's like, no, bitch is dead. I'm coming back. You think Bond is done. Then he pulls out his phone and sees there's one text message from Vesper, and it just says, Mr. White. So he knows where to find it. At the very end of the movie, he captures Mr. White. He shoots him in the leg, and the last scene is him looking down on Mr. White, holding the gun. He says, the name is Bond. James Bond. Credits. Well, that's it. And I cannot see how people do not like this movie. I don't get it. This is not, to me, this is not just a good Bond movie. This is a good movie in general. This is a great movie. I still think that On Her Majesty's Secret Service and Goldfinger are probably better than it. Those are the only two I can think of. But this got a 9 out of 10. This got up there, man. I was invested in this whole movie. The only reason why that is not better than the other two is because on Vesper's death, it didn't really just make me go, oh, like it did when Bond's wife died. And it did drag a little bit sometimes, whereas Goldfinger never really dragged. It was go, 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 go. It was a really good movie. So that's the only reason why those two are better. And Daniel Craig, the only thing he lacks is a little bit of charm. But in this movie, he's not supposed to be charming Bond. I don't think in Quantum of Solace he is either. So your body count is 11. Your love count is only 1 with Vesper. So the next one, speaking of Quantum of Solace, the next one is Quantum of Solace 2008, directed by Mark Foster, Daniel Craig's second outing. We have Camille, Strawberry Fields. Your villain is Dominic Green, but Mr. White comes back. The Aston Martin DB5 comes back, and we have Another Way to Die as the theme song, with one of my absolute favorite musicians on this planet, which is Jack White, and one of my least favorite of Alicia Keys. So this is crazy, and I'm excited for it because, well, I'm not excited for the movie because if I remember correctly, this movie is not good at all. We go from top echelon Bond to one of the worst. But I remember Skyfall and Spectre being awesome. So, and I watched it in 4K. The movie was gorgeous in 4K, and I'm sure the rest of them will be too. But for now, I will say thank you for watching again, and thank you for putting up with my long ramblings. So hopefully I'll see you again for Quantum of Solace.